All right, welcome on in, folks. This is Supreme Heretic. We are here with the Pegasus Actual Podcast tonight. My usual co-host, Brian the Gravedigger. Script Doctor will be on his way soon. And as always, we have our new additions to the panel this year, which is author Stephen Walton and Bear Nerd Fun, and Bear will be on the way momentarily as well. So we are going to get into a lot of fun and interesting things tonight. We definitely have our retro review ready to go. I know these guys are chomping at the bit to talk about episode 2 of season 1, Ronald D. Moore's Battlestar Galactica, and that would be Water. A very interesting episode, a very Sharon-centric episode. So we're going to have a lot of fun with that. So, gentlemen, how you doing this evening?
Doing well, sir. Thanks for having me on again. I appreciate this. I love this show, so I love coming on to talk about it, and I appreciate you and Gravedigger having me here.
Yeah, man. I'll tell you what, dude. We got a nice response to the first episode of the panel, and I think people are going to really enjoy what we're bringing to them this time. And Bear's already, man. Bear put in like extensive study. He was telling me in DMs, man. He was like, "Yeah, I watched the episode 3 times." I'm like, "Holy crap, dude!" So he's
sounds like me, man. I've watched it 4 times in the past 3 days.
Yeah,
I just did another rewatch, like completely it ended at 7:30. As I was waiting for the message to join in the chat.
After we did our live stream, I pretty much did a marathon halfway through the season, and I just went back and rewatched.
Yeah,
so that's the third time I've seen it.
Did you watch the miniseries, or did you just watch?
Yeah, I've seen the miniseries. Yeah, I've seen that.
I feel like we should go back and touch on.
Yeah,
because you can watch the show without it, but
past 2 months, I think I've watched it twice, the whole miniseries.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, and before I got here, I was hanging out on in Xanadoom on Lord Doomcock's Discord server.
Hail Lord Doomcock.
And hail Lord Doomcock. And he went from the top down this time, and that was a lucky thing. So I got to talk with Lord Doomcock, and I always yield my time to him so he can sing a song.
No, well, there you go. Man. There you go.
Lord Doomcock can sing.
Yeah, hail Doomcock.
And I always leave it up to him to whether he wants to sing one for the girls or not. But I always suggest it, and then the girls choose quick.
Oh, there you go.
They had one chosen real fast.
Yeah. So I wanted to kind of let everybody know. So we got an update on basically where you guys can watch the episodes. So I did some digging, got down to the bottom of it. You know, as we know, it's behind a paywall now on Amazon. It's behind a paywall now on Netflix. Where you can actually watch the episodes is you can go to NBC.com or you can go to sci-fi.com, and they have all the episodes up free until 7/31, 2020. So I'm just reading between the lines here. I'm guessing that they're running it until then because this proposed date that they have for the Peacock streaming service launching, I don't think now that service is going to launch in April. I think it's going to be more like the summertime. I think it's going to launch more like July. You know, just reading between the lines and what it says, like when you go to sci-fi.com, for example, because all the Galactica episodes and Razor and the Plan and everything else, it's all up there, you know, for free until 7/31. So that 7/31 date is making me wonder if they're going to push back Peacock a little bit because, you know, the new BSG is supposed to be a launch title. How you doing, Brian the Observer? Good to see you, man.
Now,
Hey,
question, Drew.
yes.
Being that they're going to do this, what streaming service are they starting? Are they starting a streaming service?
NBC Universal
Yeah,
is
it'll be
going to
the
have a streaming service. It's called Peacock. Now,
Oh, that's a stupid name.
oh, I know it is, but it's the NBC logo. It's always been the little peacock thing. That's why they did that. But the thing is, yeah, they're going to be starting that. Is supposedly the launch date that we were given. The first press release said April, but to me, I mean, haven't heard a whole lot of announcements of new programming shooting, or there's no casting announcements on it or anything like that. So, it would my gut's telling me that means it's going to be delayed. I don't think that April date's going to stand. I don't think they can get programming, multiple shows shot and done in 3 months' time. Actually 2 months' time.
It does kind of feel like they're trying to jam a lot into a really short time frame. So I feel like an extension would probably be going on too.
Yeah, I think it's going to be more like July, maybe August. I don't think that it's going to be, because, like I said, they have BSG up for free on sci-fi.com and NBC.com for, until 7/31. So that tells me it's going to be at least till July, August that we see even a glimpse of it, because I don't think that any of these new shows that they intend to launch with are even casted or shot yet. So yeah, they're going to have to really get a lot of the details and get the work done. So it's going to take a little while. So I would not be surprised if their launch date gets delayed. What do you guys think? You think I'm on the right track with that?
Yeah, it probably sounds like they're probably gonna make some delays, because let's face it, technology has glitches.
Well, yeah, and if you think about it, how long does it take to you got to go through casting process, and then how long does shooting take for a series? I mean, think about that too. That's an incredible amount of hours.
I think they're also going to sit back and watch and see how all these additional new streaming services are going to do.
Mm. Yeah, I agree with Brian.
Disney Plus ain't doing that great right now that Mando's over. And almost everybody canceled their subscription after they saw that last episode.
Really?
Unless they really want to watch The Simpsons.
Well, I hadn't heard that. I actually hadn't been keeping up on Disney Plus. A lot of people canceled their subscriptions after Mandalorian.
There was.
Everybody that I've been talking to about it.
Yeah, there was a number of people I know that commented to me that they're like, peace out, I'm dipping after Mandalorian. So, I'm not surprised, because why continue to pay for a streaming service if you ain't going to watch it? You're just going to resub back when the show that you want to see is on. So
that's true. As much as I give Disney grief, that service does have a lot of content on it.
It does.
So I figured it would hang on to
really new.
No, that's true.
Not a lot of it's new. When I was running my freebies, I'd run through the Mando and I'd look at everything else I had and be like, okay, I've seen all that, and I'd watch old episodes of The Simpsons.
Well, CJ says I only kept it for Spidey and X-Men animated series, and some people have their favorites on there that they're going to stick around, but there's a lot of people that The Mandalorian was just their thing, and they checked out after that until season 2 comes, and then they'll just come back.
I don't know. I think some of the people are going to come back when Obi-Wan.
Yeah. You got a point. You got a point with that. Yeah, maybe some of the
because
MCU
obviously
shows.
The shooting for Obi-Wan has to be done. Because if you go back and watch the Golden Globes, Ewan McGregor shaved off his beard, but he still has the hair. So to me, that means the
Yeah,
production
sure.
would be done at that point.
Yeah.
It would take
That's a good
longer to
catch.
grow the beard in properly than it does the hair.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a
But
good point.
it's just conjecture at this point. I mean, anything.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of it has to do with, like I said, people are just waiting around for the content that they want. They want, Mando season 2. They want the MCU shows, stuff like that, and people are waiting around on that stuff. So, we'll see. We'll see when it gets there.
Hey, one of our friends has a birthday today.
Oh, who's that, Bear?
Mad's Mama Bear has a birthday today.
Oh, good.
Oh, happy birthday!
And
Mads.
I wanted to ask you guys if you want to bring her on for about 5 minutes. She's got a live stream to get to, but want to bring her on so we can sing her happy birthday. What do you guys think?
Yeah, absolutely.
That.
Yeah.
Script Doctor. Hey, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, Script Doctor, how you doing?
Hey, Script Doctor.
I'm doing all right. Yes. Sorry for being late. Had some personal stuff to take care of, but I'm all set and excited to talk some BSG, and hopefully I don't butcher a happy birthday song.
Oh, no, it's all good. Before we went on air, Drew was saying that you gave me a BSG Bible, and I was commenting that if you had a vagina, I would definitely give you a go.
I said I'd give you a Dutch rudder at least, but
Brian did say that.
Yes, Script Doctor. I gotta say it, chat. Script Doctor is pretty awesome with what he does, and information that he can get access to and things like that. And he's just, he's just an all-around good human being. I'm very honored and flattered to have the man as a close personal friend, and one of my best friends on or off the internet, and he's a hell of a good dude and a professional through and through. So hail to you, Script Doctor.
Oh, you don't need to say that, but I appreciate it. Thank you so much, Drew. It's an honor to know you and be you're a great bud. And so the only thing I can't seem to get my hands on is that pesky Star Wars 9 script that was supposedly leaked. That's the only thing I can't seem to.
Yeah, I know.
Doomcock said he had it.
You're hunting high and low for that thing.
Yeah, Doomcock has confirmed that he has it. I've talked to everybody I know over the last 2 days to see if they have it, and they don't. So it's really weird because stuff like this usually does make it my way pretty quick, especially a hot script. So I don't know, but I'm interested in reading it. All the reports so far say that it's like better than The Rise of Skywalker, which I can definitely see. But there are a lot of inside baseball elements to it with regards to Star Wars and deep fandom. So, that makes me a little suspect because I've been asking for this script for about 2 years now, and no one's had it. And either my contacts there are playing with me and they do have it just because they know I've been looking for it for so long, or no one really has it aside from those two sources for the time being.
Yeah. So
I'm trying to be patient, but I am. Whenever there's a new script out, especially a hot one, I want to read it. So.
Yeah, hey man, and of course, as always, we all appreciate it because when you can pass on info, it always helps out with great additions to extra content like videos that any of our great channels can make, or articles that we can write for the website. I want to definitely shout out one of my colleagues, Dollified, Donald Edmonds. He also writes for Bounding Into Comics. He's a good guy and a good writer. He's one of our comic book specialists on staff, and he's also one of our big time X-Men guys. Him and Philip Pratt. So big props to Don. And also, hail Tommy, it's good to have you. Best mod in the business. And of course, Biden Touch, always good to see BT hanging around the chats. So we got Got an ETA here, Bear. Is Miss Mama Bear going to make her way in, or?
Yeah, I am.
Do you want to start talking about water while we're waiting?
Yeah, do that.
Yeah. So let me preface it by saying, this has made the joke that this is an explosive episode. No pun intended, but man, this episode really was. And I thought, at the time, Grace Park being such a young actress, for being asked to do so much in this episode, play a dual role and everything else, I think that she knocked this episode out of the park. And it was very impressive. Here you are, episode 2 of a brand new show. And, this relative unknown is just knocking it out the park. So I give huge kudos to Grace Park for her performance in this episode, and I also thought that, with this show, the difference with other shows, guys, is the fact that you always have a good continuance of story. So, like at the beginning when they do the recap and they showed what happened with the Olympic carrier, there's still some references in this episode to the fallout from that, and just natural progression. And see, that's what I like about the attention to detail that Ron Moore brings, because there's always a constant, ever changing narrative. Like, it keeps going organically. So, there's more addition to the story, and I like that, because there's a lot of times, series will concentrate on one-off episodes, and to me, one-off episodes aren't bad, but to a large degree, if you have a running narrative going through the whole season, oftentimes, if you have too many of them in a row, they can derail that narrative. And BSG was really good with keeping the storyline on track. I thought so. So those are my initial opening thoughts, and we'll get into sort of the overview of the episode, but we'll go around the horn and get everybody's sort of initial opening thoughts first. So we'll start with the wonderful author Stephen Welton.
Well, I thought we didn't see too much of Trisha Helfer in this episode. She was just, I think she was in just one scene. Maybe, yeah, I think she was just in one scene, and that was fine, because, like I said, like you said last week, this is a show that knew what it was doing when it started. The showrunners really had a direction for each character and each story, and I like it. It's before streaming services even came out. This is a show you can sit down and binge watch, because the show, like you said, it weaves in and out with one another. The last show that I remember doing that before this, to me, was Deep Space Nine. It was still episodic, but there were threads that ran throughout that show. And Battlestar, though there are many more threads, really flows from one episode to the next. And it was a Grace Park centric episode, and I really enjoyed that. Also, it gave you a lot of Aaron Douglas. Also showed you a lot of his character.
He
Galen.
showed off his range really well.
Yeah, I mean, but. Also, Mary McDonnell, Laura Roslin, she you got to really understand her more. In the first episode you did, and it kind of continues off that, natural progression within the story. Edward James Olmos, the interaction between the two of them here and there, which was also helped by Jamie Barber, Apollo. And you got to see the fallout of the Olympic carrier. I love the touching moment at the end with Mary McConnell and Jamie Barber. Jamie
Bammer, yeah.
Or Bammer, yeah.
Yeah, the thing where she finally asked him, hey, will you be the liaison to your father?
Yeah.
And I thought that was really cool, and that was a lot of foreshadowing too, that there would definitely be that dynamic, because there was always kind of that dynamic where you could almost pick up that chemistry immediately, Steven, and I'm sure that you saw it. It's sort of like mother-son chemistry between Rosalind and Apollo.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah.
know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that character took to it, and there was a trust that was forged there. But like Apollo's character of being defiant to parental figures later on, that rears its head in that relationship as well between him and Rosalind.
Sure.
But there were like little snippets, in this show with Katie Sackhoff, for instance. She wasn't in the show too much, but a very important scene again showing what kind of character she is. Interacting with James Cows's Gaius Baltar, the poker scene. Like even though there were a lot of same thing with Saul Tigh, there was a lot of little scenes you couldn't really focus on every actor. I don't think Candace McClure had too much to do in this, or Felix Gaeta didn't have too much, but there was just enough to understand their place. And you know what? There was a little bit with Candace and Billy.
Yeah,
a little bit of flirting.
It was kind of like that cute thing because Rosalind had that moment with Billy on the ship, like where she was complaining that she only had 3 outfits. She's like, I gotta get some new clothes, and he's like, well, hey, that looks great, and she's laughing because she said, you really don't know anything about women, do you? And then that sort of like plays onto that scene, like you said, with him and Candace, that little exchange in the CIC when he's standing there, and he says something to the effect of like, I like your hair. And she just giggles and he just sort of hangs his head and he's like, oof, I don't know anything about women.
Yeah, so I mean, like, one of the things about this show is that even if certain characters don't have a big part, there's always that one scene that flushes them out a little bit. It adds a little bit more to the character. Just well written show. So that's my initial thoughts.
Yeah, Brian, what was your initial thoughts of the episode as a whole?
Oh, well, as a whole, like I liked how. Honestly, I thought the way they brought out Candace McClure, the way her character was finally starting to get some fleshing out. Like even I noticed, like, wait a minute, she's wearing pink eyeshadow. It's like there's certain things she's wearing pink eyeshadow and pink nail polish in it, which I mean, none of the other females were wearing it. They're pretty much strictly military style. But I mean, you actually start to develop like feelings for some of these characters, like the poker game Steven was talking about between freaking Starbuck and Gaius Baltar. Like that was a good setup where you start to see how he tries to analyze things and play people against each other. And I don't know, I thought it was an excellent second episode. Like you almost forget about what happened in the miniseries before. Like if you didn't watch that, it's not necessary, but it definitely helps out because like in the beginning of the episode, it shows some parts where Apollo and his father are kind of having a little battle about him disobeying him. Like you have to watch the miniseries, otherwise you're like, where the hell was that at? But definitely an excellent second episode to get you started. Lots of visual representations of things that I'm sure we'll touch on later with the water.
Oh man. Oh God. Yeah. Don, my co-writer from Bounding, he just says, I'm just now remembering Tricia Helfer and Grace Park posing for Maxim. And yes, sir, they did. And as I said, that's a great visual aid.
You can always go back and find the Tricia
concur,
Helfer.
Don. I concur. I may have to make that one of my wallpaper options in the future.
You can go back and find the Tricia Helfer Playboy too, as well.
Rumor has it I may or may not have that collected. So
that means you have it?
Yes. Absolutely. So, all right, Script Doctor, give me your.
You have Bear do it first because I was the last one in. So.
Okay, Bear, go ahead. Give me your overview and first
Well,
impression?
Well, it's becoming what is her name? Valerie?
Yeah, Sharon Valeri.
Call sign
Boomer.
Boomer. Basically, she's flipping out because it's like, okay, I just woke up soaking wet. Why am I sitting here? Why am I waking up sitting up? Opens bag, looks in. Holy shit. Detonator and plastic explosives. Then she goes to put that shit back, and holy shit, there's a whole row of detonators missing. So she's starting to think that wow, I might be a Cylon.
Yeah, I found that interesting too, Barrett, because she jumped to that conclusion first, which is weird, because somebody at first would just think like the normal shit happened, like, oh, another one of the crew setting me up or whatever. Notice how she jumped to that conclusion first. And again, we go back to that foreshadowing.
Yeah, and I even think toward the end of 33, I think she was starting to think that. She was looking a bit worried.
Yeah.
Because toward the end of that, was it 33? Didn't someone write on her mirror in 33? Or did it happen this episode? I mix them up.
I can't remember if it was this episode or if it's actually the next one. I think it might be the next one because I know that the investigation that the Master at Arms is doing about the detonators disappearing from the arms locker is definitely not over. Okay, it's not over by any means. So yeah, but go ahead, continue, Bear.
Well, evidently, there's quite a few detonators missing, and of course, she goes and tells what the hell's his name? I always forget his name.
Aaron Douglas, Chief Terrell.
Chief, yeah. Basically, she confides in him, Terrell, as everyone refers to him by his last name, and or just Chief.
Oh, they were still in a relationship at that point in the show too.
Yeah, they were still banging.
They were still involved.
Yeah.
Yep, they were definitely involved. So yeah, she's getting to this point to where she's seriously thinking that she's a Cylon. It's obvious that she's thinking this. She's flipped out. She tells Terrell. And then not too long after that, they lose 60% of their water in those detonations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That was like such a trip too, because it's just like, man, those explosives were placed just so perfect. I mean, they basically tried to like bleed out all their water, and it's funny that that they found another water source, but Stephen touched on this when we were in the lobby before we came into the stream and started, that it was very interesting how she was struggling to actually physically get it out, get the words out her mouth. Like she couldn't, at first, like she couldn't even say it.
Yeah, basically her Cylon programming was trying to take over and stop her from saying stuff. Mm-hmm. And she actually stopped herself from blowing up the what do you call it, the Raptor?
Yeah.
And because she forced herself out of it, she looked down and she sees her hand literally centimeters from the frickin' button. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's something to freak out about.
True that.
Yeah, and she gets back in there and gets Chief Terrell's. She goes, "I really need you to look at something." something to do with some gyro or something like that.
Yeah, some foot
And
pedal.
say again.
I think she said some foot pedal or something.
Yeah. And and she really makes it apparent that he should do it. And
Yeah, he tries
he
to pass
goes
it
in
off
there.
on Callie.
Yeah. And he goes in there and he's like, the look on his face, like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
His face literally says, what the fuck?
Yep. That's pretty apt description, my friend. Because that's what it was. And I think like just the interesting thing of that whole thing. Hey, Melanie, you have yourself a good night. Take care of yourself.
Have a good one, Melanie.
The interesting thing was just the intrigue hanging over them the whole episode. Like, is she going to be caught? Is somebody going to suspect her? And even when there's a scene of the Raptor shining the light in when the damage control teams are looking at inspecting the damage to the tanks, and she's shining the light in from her Raptor right onto the Chief, and he's like, "Yep, we got it taken care of and everything," and yeah, so he was already basically breaking every protocol in the book for her, and went over the line at that point, and it sort of foreshadows that with Boomer, the Chief has a serious, like there's nothing that he won't do for her. Yeah, he has a serious weakness, and and I love that this episode foreshadows it, because later on we find out just what a weakness he does have for her.
And she's almost like devious in that scene too. She's looking in and like she's smiling.
Mm-hmm.
Like she knows he's covering up for her, and there's got to be a part of her that knows that what she's doing or what she's done. It's
Oh
like
yeah, then it's Chief that almost lets it drop over the mic. He says something to the effect of "Don't worry." Then he takes 3 beats and he's like, "Me and my crew will be okay."
Mm-hmm.
Like she's worried about him getting evac'd, and then she tells her ECO to check his light, the way he's moving the light, because apparently he had it in the wrong spot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, and man, guys, just the details of that was like, I mean, that's awesome. It's like these little touches that before this, wasn't really seen in a lot of TV. There was stuff you would get that from Deep Space Nine, but even some of the precursor shows like Babylon 5 and stuff, they had a lot of detailed storytelling, but you didn't see like details like that, just little touches in there. And I thought that's what this show did so well, man.
Oh yeah, and especially like big hats off to Grace Park and Chief there, because you got to remember they were playing that off of green screen for the most part. Like they weren't there next to each other, and they knocked that out of the park.
You mean they weren't together when they filmed those?
No, any scenes in
Raptors, he might have been on set, but I mean,
yeah, any scenes in Raptors and Vipers very rarely were they together, if at all, because it was all green screen work.
Plus, one thing you got to remember when they're wearing those helmets, with the way they have to shoot them for TV and movies, that the LED light that makes it where you can see their face essentially makes that clear shield like a mirror, and you can't see out of the damn thing anyway. It's one of the biggest things I picked up from Adam Savage is they're blind. They can't see nothing when they're doing the acting in that thing.
Oh wow, damn. All right, so that so anything else to add at this second, Bear?
The the fact that Adama and the president immediately basically come on over to Battlestar Galactica, and they're pretty much on top of the situation, and they're water rationing. And let me tell you, folks ain't happy. Folks are not happy.
Yeah, there's a lot of really interesting stuff that comes up just because of that right there. In fact, at the 29-minute mark, Adama makes his speech on the importance of keeping military and police power separate. There's a reason why you keep separate military and the police. One fights the enemy of the state, and the other serves and protects the people. When the military becomes both, then the enemies of the state tend to become the people. And I was like, holy shit.
That is a damn good. I know that's a hell of a quote right there.
That was a good catch, man. That is a really good catch.
Yeah, trust me, it took me 2 minutes of rewinding to make sure I got that word for word.
That was a good catch. All right. Script doctor.
Yeah, they have to start rationing water, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
And also looking for a source of water.
Did another thing I noticed when they started those water rations, when the commander and President Roslin are in his quarters towards the end, when he gives her the book, did you notice when he goes to the sink, he goes to turn the faucets on, and he's like, ha! And he pulls his hands back, because usually he splashes his face every single time he goes into his private quarters, but he still goes ahead and dries his hands off on the towel, which I thought was a really excellent touch on his part. Yeah, like I'll never understand his complete request for the blue contacts. I'll never quite understand the purpose of that, but
his eyes are
amazing.
Yeah, his eyes originally green, Hazel,
something like that.
Really dark brown, I thought, but
They're
it's been a while since I just
Lee's.
stared at a man's eyes.
What was that, script doctor?
Yeah, Lee Adama, he has blue eyes.
Yeah, they match better too. The actor of his son.
Oh, okay.
Never thought about that. I just know that was one of his stipulations.
Yeah, man.
He demanded and he said if anything ever starts getting really campy, he's out. Like, write me out of the script that day as soon as he gets campy. That was another part of his contract.
Well, yeah, because he was sold on the idea that it was going to be kind of a grim series.
Yeah.
Because before it even aired, before the miniseries even aired, he warned fans and said, this is not what you're expecting it to be. Like, you're not going to like these characters, like, not in the way that you're familiar with them originally. He pretty much, like, braced the fan base for impact. And it was a smart thing to do because he was open about that after all the hoopla with Battlestar Galactica once it aired, people were like, oh, he was at least honest with everybody about it. He's like, he wasn't lying. So they gave him the benefit of the doubt that they would like the show. And regardless of how the series ended, it did do quite well for the fans and grew a very large fan base. So, I mean, that's the best you can hope for with an actor who understands what he's getting into or she's getting into.
Yeah, I thought that was good on their part. I think a lot of the sort of the pre-show press junkets, things like that. I thought that the big actors in the show, which obviously were Edward James Olmos and Mary at the time, they were the two most known. I think they prepared the fan base really well. They were good ambassadors of the show, as far as getting the public ready for it. And I thought that they came up well in the interviews ahead of time, before the miniseries dropped and things like that. And even Tricia Helfer, in her youth, man, she came off really well. And she turned into a great actress. I mean,
she became Farrah Fawcett's replacement.
Well, if you guys take now and you look at her recent work on Lucifer, was really good.
Oh, she was awesome in Lucifer.
Yeah, and
that woman's got range in the way she can act.
She does. She does. She is a really good actress, and she's really fought hard and perfected the craft. I mean, she's done a great job. And
Plus, the woman that plays Valerie, she plays in Hawaii Five-0.
well, she was in the first few seasons.
She left that show a few years ago.
Yeah, she left that show.
Well,
Yeah, Grace Park.
I've been slowly catching up on it, so I haven't reached that part. 'Cause I watch an
she did,
episode. I watch an episode here and there because
Mhm.
you know every now and then I like a little bit of police show, and honestly, I watch it because she's in it. And
A lot of people did.
basically, I got no reason to watch it now.
Like
Yeah.
Hawaii Five-0 started shortly after Battlestar Galactica ended.
Yep.
And
Mhm.
she was brought in, I think, second or third season to that series. Because she wasn't at it from the beginning, I don't think.
Yeah, she was.
She was? Okay.
Yeah, she was.
But yeah, I remember the whole hoopla about the disagreement with her and some other cast members, and that's why they ended up leaving. It was over money.
Yeah, it always is.
Over squabbles on I think I should get paid more than that person, or that person's getting paid what I think I should be getting paid. Yeah, human nature.
Yeah, they wanted equity with regards to it, even though they were essentially minor characters that slowly built their way up throughout the series. It is alleged that they claimed discrimination based on their ethnicity for it. That may be the case, but CBS, CBS was doing it. They denied such allegations. The one thing that a lot of people that were covering it didn't bring up is the fact that agents negotiate pay scale. So it's entirely possible that the agents of the principal members of the cast that were being paid more had just better negotiating power, better leverage, and Grace Park and her cohorts did not have that same type of effect through their agents to get what they were hoping to get. So they walked, and they're still doing well as far as I know. So,
I wish my future ex-wife all the luck. Till she comes around.
Oh man, dude, yeah. I think though, like I said, in the people that really blossomed out of this show, I thought was Trisha, Katie, and Grace all did. I think they did well. I mean, Katie Sackhoff's had some hits and misses, obviously. She had a good hit with Longmire after BSG. Some of the latest stuff that she's done hasn't really, hit the mark, but she's still really good. And I mean, she's still
that new sci-fi show on Netflix. What is that? Another Life, maybe?
Yeah. It's just not good, dude. It's just not written too well.
You were feeling it.
What's it called?
Another Life, and it just has a lot of plot holes in it, and it was not written well, and that's what killed off that show. Matter of fact, I think it got canceled already. So,
well, she had excellent potential. I mean, she still does.
Oh yeah, she's gonna, Steven, she's gonna get in something big again. I mean, dude, she was very close to, landing Captain Marvel, but
no, she wasn't.
Really?
Oh.
She was not.
Oh,
she was not even considered.
Really?
Really?
Wow.
Listen, a lot of fans wanted her for Captain Marvel, and I can totally understand why, but Hollywood did not.
Wow.
Marvel did not.
Interesting. Probably because she would have played Captain Marvel right.
Would have played her like a badass. Absolutely.
She would have played her exactly like Starbuck, and they didn't want to see Starbuck again. That's the thing. Like when you have a character, an actor like Katie Sackhoff, who she has not done enough to really show a very broad range compared to some of the other cast members of BSG, and that's not through any fault of her own. It's mostly due to whoever's directing or show running. I think at the time they're playing her to her type, and like the one thing I do know, before Captain Marvel even came out, she did a couple of guest appearances on The Flash, and I checked her out because I wanted to see what she was doing, and she was doing this god awful British accent.
Oh yeah, I remember that character.
She was just absolutely like, the story was terrible enough, but she really brought it down further. It's like she couldn't understand how to chew the scenery properly. It was so like, what the hell's going on? Given the fact that the directors of the Flash series don't really do anything, that was just all her. And it's like, where's the discipline, the self-discipline for being a character actor? And I don't want to be crapping on Katie Sackhoff because I do adore her, but it was like she swung for the fences and unfortunately missed every time when she was on that show. And I blame the show for not like taking her aside and being, don't go this far, don't do this thing. Like, that's, you're trying, but that's not what we're trying to get across with this show. Like, there should have been someone there to talk to her about that, and I don't suspect that there was. No, Katie Sackhoff definitely has a huge popularity, but she would not have been like when they were launching Captain Marvel, they expected this to replace Robert Downey Jr. They wanted another 12 years of this character, and sadly, Katie Sackhoff is not in the age group for that to be pulled off.
Well,
my choice would be Reese Witherspoon, and she's definitely not in the age group to pull that off. So, but however, she is a very different actor. She's never done superhero stuff before, and I think that
I was just going to bring that up.
She would have knocked it out of the park. Brie Larson could have knocked it out of the park, but she wasn't given a good role. She has a weird publicist, and the entire team that was writing Captain Marvel just missed the mark completely.
Yeah.
I also think making comments, the comments that she had made at the award show.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't help that she started making those comments after she filmed the movie. Like that
she
movie was already
alienated 60% of her audience.
Yeah, she did.
Yeah, exactly. Before the movie was even done post-production.
Yep.
And that probably comes into the fact that maybe she got so invested in the character, she adopted the silly mentalities that was motivating that character in that movie, along with, I guess, the influence of the two directors. Because I've seen that movie twice, and I feel like one director was only directing Brie Larson, and the other director was directing everyone else, because Brie Larson does not fit in that movie at all with regards to tone, playing. It's like if you watch the movie Striptease, Demi Moore is completely not playing into the role that's written for her like all the other actors around her. Like, she's trying to play this as a dramatic role where she's like this competent woman who is a secretary at the FBI who just happens to be only able to strip in order to get money, and everybody else is playing exactly the role that's supposed to be, like a sleazy owner of a strip club, a bouncer who's just not taking shit, wants a quick get rich quick stream. You've got the ex-husband who's stealing medical supplies and is like eating painkillers. And then you got Burt Reynolds, who's just owning that movie as a sleazy politician. Like, all of those things all work together except for what Demi Moore is doing in that performance. And it's like, what the hell? And that's what I saw, that exact type of reflection in Captain Marvel with Brie Larson. Like, she's playing she thinks she's in a different movie than what she's actually in. And it was clear as day for me.
Well, I mean, coming back to Katie, and as far as the episode, the one scene that she was in here was in a scene where she was playing oh god, what's the name of the game? Poker.
Yeah, it was like, it's poker, right? But she was playing it with Baltar, and they're a little back and forth, and the fact that he's essentially schooling her and manipulating her, also almost trying to like play his promiscuous hand on her,
right?
While also maintaining some distance, was a lot of fun. Like
and she understood it, and she understood what was going on.
Absolutely.
And respected it, his ability to play and flirt and act the way that he was acting. The demeanor of both the characters in that scene. I mean, it leads up to other episodes that we'll cover later.
And not humiliate her in front of the other officers. That was also impressive.
You know? Right. So, I mean, just
I thought it was a fun turn because with the way it started, he was like, "Oh, I'll be embarrassed," and she's like, "Oh, that's such a strong word." And he turns around and plays it entirely on her. I thought that was awesome.
She's such a bitch.
His entire motivation there was just to get away from the little the new assistant appointed to him.
Yeah, the thing too was it was a classic little Starbuck beat as well. You know, like it was a callback to original Starbuck playing poker all the time. You know, and
well, he was the Han Solo of the original Battlestar Galactica, like that.
Yeah, exactly. And that was cool that I found it pretty neat that they had some callbacks to the original still. You know,
Well,
Well,
also-
yeah, in the last episode, they
personality.
played the original theme during the ceremony
Yeah.
of retiring the ship. I also especially love what Battlestar Galactica did. Well, at least what Ron D. Moore also did, is he copied the intro to Space 1999 for Battlestar Galactica by showing clips of the episode that's about to be aired as they're doing the opening credits.
Mhm.
So if you ever
during
see,
the dramatic drum.
yeah, when they do I mean, I'm not a fan of the Battlestar Galactica music. I like the original 79 version.
Me too.
It's far more fun. This
Well,
one
see,
is just early 2000s trying to be deep with the drums and
Well, one of the things I noticed was in like the first 4 or 5 episodes, if you listen to the actual intro music, it changes. Like even between episode 1 and episode 2, it's slightly different. And as we get into the later seasons, it's just this dramatic, almost mournful
escalates,
sound,
yeah.
and then I loved the drums. I thought that was the best part. That's when I know it's time to pay attention to the show.
There was also a leading into that scene, the only part with Trisha Helfer in it, when they were talking about Baltar needing assistance, and then he's assigned Gata, and he's talking with Gata, walking through the hallway leading into the room where they're playing poker, and it just shows how much he just doesn't want anything to do with the actual business at hand, the Cylon detection. I think that has a lot to do with the character's guilt about, basically allowing the murder of all these people, giving the codes to the Cylons to Caprica 6. But just his dismissive attitude toward him kind of begins that thread. And as he's walking in there, Gata's just waiting in the wings, and then he's just like, well, don't let me hold you up. After he sits down to Gata, and just Gata just walks off. Like Baltar really, whenever Baltar sees pleasure, that is paramount.
Yeah.
Always with that character.
Hedonist. Definite hedonist.
Mhm.
One of the things I really noticed was after Gata lets Baltar know that he actually did some genetic. That was part of his college course was genetic work.
Mm-hmm.
That was the moment where he was like, "Oh crap! I really got to ditch this guy now," because he thought he was just dealing with a communications officer.
Right.
basically.
Yeah, because if I recall correctly, Baltar is a scientist that's more into computer sciences as opposed to actual genes.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
like, he was just kind of talking in circles when he was put under pressure for his detection.
Yeah, definitely
Theory.
talking out of his ass.
Pretty much. And on top of that, like, he's safe in that regards because there's no resources for the Galactica team to vet his educational credentials any further so he can say he knows whatever science he wants to buy him time to still be considered important and in on all these meetings.
Mhm.
But
Well, yeah, he's the last remaining member of the Ministry of Defense or whatever it was called.
yeah. And all he did was design a very corrupt defense system.
Right.
Like, I love the irony of that.
The interactions, especially when they were discussing the water situation, you could tell that every person in that room is annoyed with him. That elitism out of him, but they have to deal with him.
Oh yeah, Adama even calls it out to a point. He's something to the effect of, obviously your
Until you have a superior
intellectual level is above us, so just tell us what the fuck you need.
Right. Yeah, Adama, he doesn't have time for BS, but he does show that he has time for what he considers BS when they do the full dress for the president coming aboard.
Yeah, his
to make
keeping up
it more like the
appearances.
president.
I love that his keeping up appearances aspect. I like the fact that Leah Dama tells the president that he's doing this to make her feel more comfortable, and I like that she's acquiescing to it to make him feel more comfortable. And I love the fact that these are two characters with two different perspectives coming for doing the same thing for the same reason.
The great thing is that's it's a 5-minute turn from when she was leaving the Colonial One. She was like, "Oh, the military always said on precedent and pomp and circumstance, something like that." And then she finds out, no,
And
it's
protocol,
exactly the opposite. Just for you.
So yeah.
And I mean, I also like how they thread. Oh, sorry, Barry, go right ahead.
basically, she didn't realize that Adama hates that shit.
Yeah.
He was doing that to her just for respect, because he
For
actually
respect and-
respected her.
Yep, for respect and also to keep the status quo among the, I guess the military relation with the office of the people.
Well,
I also really enjoyed how they were able to thread in the exposition of what they're doing, like they're resupplying a ship's water because they can recycle and maintain water in the Galactica for the whole fleet for a number of years, but other ships don't have the same ability. And it was just like kind of a run-of-the-mill thing that they're doing in between their operations. And then when the explosives went off and they started venting the water and they're having to rush it all out, I mean, on the surface, if you're not paying attention, it feels like it would be contrived, but it's actually all about what problem are they going to have without a place they can call home. Like, they have no planet to mine and do resources on. So they're going to be coming into these problems. And Ronald D. Moore was quite brilliant in addressing some of the most pertinent ones right away. Like, the first one was sleep. This one is water.
Mhm.
And the next one is going to be food. And then you're going to have other resources and medication. And like, it's just kind of dangling the carrot in front of you. Like, there's going to be bigger issues for them to have to address very soon.
Well, it also excuses, for if I may interrupt for a second, it also allows the world building, because it's not just this fleet's going through space and they have all the resources they need and let's go to the next problem, and as far as dealing with the Cylons or, interrelationships, but they're actually addressing the needs of this fleet and how they confront those needs throughout the story, which is great.
Because the next one is going to be about mining for the water, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Yeah, it's next one's Bastille Day.
Well, I want to point out something that Bear was just talking about. Going back to Rosalind and Adama early on. I mean, he doesn't necessarily respect her. He respects the article, or the office rather.
Mhm.
He respects the articles of colonization and the office of the president. So, he respects the office in that manner, but he doesn't nowhere near respect her yet.
True that, and he also respects his own position. Like, he understands where he's at. He is the commander of the fleet, the last military vestige to protect humanity. I mean, that pressure upon him is really great, because he does understand his position, and he knows that that appearance has to be maintained, order has to be maintained. Like you said, respect for the articles of colonization have to be maintained. So even though he doesn't like her in some respects, or may not like her, he wants that system to remain in place, because he knows that the citizens will fall apart. They're barely being held together as it is.
Yeah, because as you can see with Ty, yeah.
Well, I don't think that he doesn't like her. I actually think he just doesn't trust her yet.
Yeah. Well, you can see with Ty, though, they're still like off to the side laughing because she's a school teacher. They're still making the funnies about her being a teacher. So they don't have that full-on respect for her that she can pull this off, because they think she's a long shot. She just got thrown in there because of circumstances. They know she's a long shot. They respect the office because they're, military, and they respect the office of the president, but they don't respect the person yet. So that's
not only that, like, they understand that she fell into this position and she hasn't been vetted or qualified for the responsibility that she has. The thing that they are learning is that she's actually quite adept at this. Even though she's kind of shooting from the hip, she's not quite making any mistakes as of yet. Well, she will be making some mistakes. We know that. But the thing is
obvious. It's obvious she's green, but she comes from a teaching standpoint. If you guys,
she comes from an educational standpoint, and she's also been with this administration for the previous term, or for the previous amount of years. Like, she wasn't recently elected into the office of for the overseeing education like a year ago. She's been doing it for quite a while, and she was actually part of the president's campaign and cabinet since he was running for office. So she may just be a school teacher and overseeing the education part of Caprica, but she's been integral with the actual administration before the attack of the Cylons. So she's definitely going to have she's going to be showing us some other knowledge and skills that she has. And because she's taking it one step at a time as opposed to trying to lead the charge, as other characters probably would have, it's actually scoring her points with the military, especially when she reaches out to Lee to understand what, like, I know I don't know these things, so that's why I want you around. I want you to teach me so that I can have this relationship. And when Adama gives her that book, it's like a gesture of like, okay, if you read this, we can start to cooperate a lot easier. Like, that's pretty much what he's saying with that intent.
Right.
She's
and,
like,
I'm sorry.
No, because she's like, I don't have any books and I wish I read this one. He's like, I've got it. Here you go. Don't give it back. It's yours. And from there on, we'll, like, that's how we're going to start this thing. Like, it's basically offering a hand of friendship, even though he has his issues.
And as we find
first olive branch.
Yeah. And as we find out later on, I mean, she was actually close to Adar, President Adar. And so another hint to that is when she's speaking with Lee about there was an invasion where 14 people had died. Adar had made a decision to send in the military, and 14 civilians had died, and he realized that was a mistake and kept the names of those 14 people in his desk. And she showed him a note of the Olympic carrier that she kept in her pocket to remind her, because she said Adar had told her that it's important that a leader learn from their mistakes as well as their successes. And that was a bonding experience between her and Lee, because he had guilt about what had happened. You know, he gave her that answer, that a man is responsible for his actions. And then she replied with that story. So that was kind of a bonding and understanding experience between the two that creates an interesting relationship moving forward with the character.
Yeah, because Apollo got that, from his dad, reinforced that lesson early on in the show. That little beat in between them where he was explaining to Lee, you can't look back. A man takes responsibility for his actions, and deals with the consequences every day. And then he pretty much, tells Rosalind the same thing at the end. Lee does.
Yeah, absolutely.
But both those lessons coincide with each other. It's like, learn from your mistakes and move forward. And that's what taking responsibility for your actions is all about. And Adamo is telling him, don't dwell on it, but don't let it, but live with it, and like live with the consequences. And Rosalind's saying basically the same thing. And when you have those two people from two different walks of life giving the same advice, it's like, okay, there's simpatico here. And that's why Lee, as the show progresses, tries to keep those two cooperating as much as he can, because he knows that that just because their approach is different, their goal is going to end up be the same.
And
no, I was just going to say, continue to go around the horn, gentlemen, and talk. I gotta step away for a quick bye. I'll be right back.
Sure. There was a segment earlier where I think Brian brought it up earlier about the military and being the police of the fleet, and that Adama was worried, that the military would, about the military policing the fleet. And Rosalind had said, I'm not going to let that happen. And I think that everybody here understands the vital necessity of maintaining the power structure for the safety of the people. What potentially could go wrong? Like, we're not dealing with stupid people. We're not dealing with dumb characters. We're dealing with people who are very conscientious of what is going on in the conditions that they are under. And I think that also led Rosalind to want to understand more about the military, not just from the gesture of everybody dressing up for her arrival and her getting the enlightenment from Lee that Adama was doing that as a gesture of goodwill to her, but also that she needs to understand these things. She needs to understand the military way of things in order to effectively govern from this brittle place of being an inexperienced person in that position, and basically governing over the last of the human race.
Yeah, and I know it's also a great reminder for those paying attention of what Adama's monologue was, is that he's reminding people that the state is of the people and the people is of the state, and that when you have the military interfere with that, it ends up going against the code of what they stand for, which is to protect the people. Especially in current modern times, we kind of forget that there is no real divide from the state and the people. They are symbiotic. That's why our representatives are elected, and they're not through a monarchy or anything like that. It's because any person who is part of the state can run for office and represent their community, and that's what's so important. And that's what his speech was about. It's like if the military starts enforcing against the people instead of protecting them, then they're not going to have a people that's going to be benefiting the rest of the government or the rest of the citizens. It's going to be under military rule, and he's like, that's not what the military is for.
It definitely comes up again later in the show too, when they actually have to step in that one time when they have to take over and put everybody under martial law. He's very much against that, and he fights it tooth and nail to the last second
until he realizes that.
That's what I really love about it.
Yeah. The person that doesn't fight that kind of situation is Saul, and we get to see him pulling his bottle down and making finger marks at how many drinks he has left, which is very telling of the character himself. You know, earlier in the first episode, Adam had said to him, "It's good to see you not with a bottle in your hand." So you already know and understand that this is a person who, you know, loves his drink.
Yeah, where he had the coffee cup the whole time in the miniseries.
Yeah.
One of the things I love about Saul, and I mean, if you don't really think about it, you don't know a whole lot of Navy XOs. Like, they're very salty. So the fact that they named him Saul Ty.
Well, Colonel Ty was from the original series. They just added the Saul in there, and it just worked out to their benefit.
Well, it was very smart the way they did it. And like later on, when they're talking about looking for the water, Dom was like, "I was like searching for a needle in a haystack." And Saul, of all people, comes up with, it's like looking for a grain of sand on a beach, or a grain of salt.
The greatest salt on the beach. Yeah.
So to me, that just reinformed the whole, almost like they knew what they were doing there when they named him Saul, and made his full name, if you mush it together, Salty. But, I mean, he's almost a perfect XO. In my opinion, like he's not there. He's not there to be the guy you come and talk to. He's the guy that's there to bust your balls and tell you you're doing it wrong.
Right.
Yeah, he calls you out when you're doing it wrong, and if you do something right, he stays silent. Yeah.
I had a Sicilian boss like him once.
Oh, really?
Yeah, when I lived in North Kingstown, Rhode Island for about 3 months.
Oh, no kidding, dude.
Yeah, I told you that guy was. I told you about this guy before.
Yeah,
he was serious, and they're serious about their ball busting, man.
Oh yeah.
He reminds me a lot of my dad's assistant fire chiefs he had, which is essentially a XO.
Yeah.
In that situation, so like it was, to me, he was like, the way he played that character, and even later on in season 4.
Oh, the actor. Michael Hogan is great.
He's amazing
actor. Yeah.
And like this show really got me hooked on a lot. Like it opened me up to a lot of new actors. Tomoa Pennicott. I think I'm saying his name horribly.
Tomoa Pennicott.
Yeah. Like I don't even know how to say it. Basically, Hilo.
Yeah, Tomoa Pennicott. That's how you say it.
With him on the Occupied Caprica. Yeah.
I think which is another cool thing I think I brought up earlier was the visual repetition of water.
Yeah,
so the whole time
they're on Caprica.
He played Need for Speed Carbon.
Yeah, yeah, he did. Bear. And
that's where I remember it from.
He made that game everything.
Yep. And did you guys know? Okay, did you pay attention to a little detail? You know, we talk about the little details in the series. Did you guys pay attention to when the water got vented into space? It immediately turned into ice crystals, which would be the natural thing that would happen. You know, it didn't just show water gushing into space. It immediately almost turned to ice crystals. And it's just, again, this goes back to the attention to detail. I was always blown away right up to the minute of the attention to detail, just little stuff like that.
Well, they kind of missed a big part, which is when water vents out into space like that, it would freeze itself shut and close off the hole.
Yeah, I was gonna say it should
like it would start going into crystals, but it would eventually seal itself off.
Yeah.
The
Yeah,
only
but they had to
thing
give
is
it
that
some kind of
the interior was heated to keep the water like still in liquid form, and it was heated enough to combat the ice coldness of space. Then it would work. But I mean, immediately what they would have done is been like shut down the water heating systems to freeze it up and plug it up, and like that would be an emergency thing on a ship like that. The other part I also noticed is how thin the wall lining for that water tank is compared to like, because that area was hit like twice
Right.
in the previous episode, and it didn't by nuclear missiles, and it did nothing to it. And I'm looking at it, it's like, oh, it's like 4 feet deep. That's not the very deep for a battleship in space. It's taking
Well,
nukes. So that's
It's unobtainium script.
yeah. And on top of that, it's like that was an explosion from the inside out to burst through it. So like it's like small plastic explosives. Like they weren't big, but it does a lot of damage. So I thought,
So
that's
did we
kinda
have our
wild.
first case? Did we have our first little case of plot armor there, SD?
It's not really plot armor, but it's basically just a pushing a manipulation of science in order to push the urgency, which is acceptable for a drama.
Mm-hmm.
Like there is definitely a way they could have justified it and played around with it. Like number one, the first thing they said is it's only one of the several tanks the ship has that was vented out water, so they do have reserves on the other side of the ship. That's fine, which is good. But like the detail that they had is like, oh yeah, the water crystallized, but I'm like, it would actually freeze. You'd have like this giant giant sized waterfall like frozen in midstream sticking out of that and plug up the hole, and then whatever water is left inside the tank would still be relatively liquid, but it would probably be slowly freezing over, and it would just be a rush job for the engineering crew to get in there and then have to figure out a way to break off that giant ice piece without venting any more water and then seal it off normally. And that's a great problem to explore as well, on top of finding water to replace what was already lost.
Yeah.
Another cool thing, we were talking about it in the before we got started up, was I noticed that as soon as that explosion happened, we go to New Caprica and it's raining.
Yep.
The whole
Yeah.
time. So like as they're going through the drought on
Water
the ship,
theme.
it's just constantly raining on these two the whole time. It's like, but the other thing about it is it's radiated water. So I mean, you could if you really needed to, but I mean, even with a shot, it still wouldn't save you that much.
And another thing, I think it was toward the end of that episode, there was they received a colonial signal, and and that they didn't say where it was coming from. I mean, of course, it's going to lead into the next show, but we have
Stephen. I believe it's like the signal. I want to say it. I believe it's kind of near Delphi in the area of where Colonial headquarters is, and but it's like kind of on the outskirts, because eventually, we'll see in another episode they locate the actual source, because it's not the actual Colonial military base, but yeah, it's in that general vicinity.
I'm just commenting as to how they're leading the audience. Someone who's seeing this with fresh eyes. That Sharon is a Cylon, and Hilo had that interaction with one of the Sixes earlier on, and then that Six was killed, and then he ran into Athena, or who will become Athena. And they show the ship, and there's Cylons all over the ship, and that he's being led along for some purpose. And so when you get that signal, it's kind of like an instant that something that you would pick up on, like, okay, where are they leading him to now?
And I can't remember this, but do they go to other occupied planets like Toron and all those guys?
No, I don't.
No,
I don't
it's only
believe
on
so.
Caprica, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they use that.
Definitely tell this is part of Six's procreation. I guess her like hard line, because she's always pushing it through everything. Is she wants a human Cylon hybrid,
and the interaction between Athena and Hilo on the planet, like there's a little bit of flirting, there's that little bit of sensual moment, You know,
Well, he's like he's essentially, and you see it later. I think they cover it in the plan, and they cover it in some other stuff. You sort of see that Hilo is like a guinea pig because they're trying to get that hybrid thing to happen, but they're also curious. And this goes back to what I was talking about in the show Bible, that this was a running idea in the show Bible where they said that, the Cylons were curious about human love and things like that. And Hilo provided basically the perfect guinea pig for that experiment. So that's a big part of it too. Not just going to try and get possibly a human Cylon hybrid, but to see, what human love was like. So Hilo provides essentially that guinea pig for that test. But what they aren't counting on is that, later, obviously, they're going to find out that this Sharon actually, hey, she falls for Hilo and puts him above anything else eventually.
And she doesn't have any conditioning like Boomer.
No, she's a regular 8.
Right, but there's moments where like the conditioning breaks with Boomer, for instance, when she's detecting the water.
Mm-hmm.
And she doesn't see it. She sees it but doesn't see it. Like there's this glaze over her, and she's playing with the detonator next to the seat because her programming is saying, okay, we found something that they need, destroy the ship, so they never find it. Mm-hmm. And then she eventually breaks free of it, and then that's the incident where she realizes that the bomb, that there's a detonator next to her, and it's just but then at the end of this episode, she's doing that walk like Brian was talking about earlier. She's doing that walk where she's programmed, she's conditioned to be an infiltrator. And the thing that I look at this, when I look at the entire episode as a whole, I look at how she responded when she was looking at Galen, floating outside, and the way she was happy that he was covering for her, and then the surprise that she has in her face when she's able to break out of that conditioning and alert that she has found water, and then at the end of the episode she's doing that stomp, that Cylon stomp, is how much of her is the conditioning, and how much of her is the actual the Boomer identity, and like where's the line? Like how much of this character is the condition and how much is the individual?
Yeah, one of the things I really liked was how they made a definite difference between Athena's makeup and Boomer's makeup.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that too.
If you watch it, Boomer has much darker,
nice catch.
Like the lipstick, the eyeshadow, and some of her contouring they were doing is much darker than anything they do on Athena throughout the rest of the series.
Well, her purpose on it, maybe throughout the series, but in this episode in particular, Athena's mission at this point is to procreate, is to make that happen. Yeah. So she would be prettier. They would make her prettier.
Well, I mean, you also kind of have to give them leeway because they're stuck on a nuked planet.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, even Hilo points it out. It's like, you really aren't looking that rough.
Yeah.
like that snap moment when the water tanks blow on the Galactica and they snap to Caprica. Like you see her taking her rad shot, and like he's all fucking horrible, like
mm-hmm.
brown
pasty white.
He's definitely got the jaundicing going,
mm-hmm.
and
very toxic.
Sitting there like perfect. And she's just like, oh, I'm just taking the shot. And he's like, hold up. And he's talking about it doesn't taste like mother's cooking, and that's definitely where things start to move towards a Athena Hilo kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Which was like, to me, I thought that was one of the coolest ways they were able to show that not all the Cylons were the same. Despite the fact that they were all programmed the same and look the same, they each have their own takeaways. Like later on when you see multiples of the same model and they're all dressed differently or not dressed at all, because I mean they are just robots, but I mean there's still some of them that feel the need to wear clothes.
there's a thing that nobody really has noticed, as far as I can tell.
Okay.
Humans don't have to love someone to get someone pregnant.
Yeah.
Cylons, they have to be in love to get pregnant.
Well, I guess that,
Chemically,
yeah,
chemically, they have to love someone for them to conceive. Otherwise, if Cylons don't love someone, they're just having sex to have sex. They don't get pregnant.
Well, I mean, we could
That's what
definitely.
Gene Stockwell's
Yeah,
character
it's
brings up
kind of
later.
a hole there when with Chief and Callie.
Yeah, you'd have to. That's something
that's
we
later on.
could delve into later on,
No,
right? I don't want to go
deeply,
too far ahead.
deeply love one another. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there was.
Because
Yeah, I'm
it
not going
almost
to touch
seemed like
that.
he was just. It almost seemed like he was just like, all right, that's what's there. I'll take it.
I mean, speaking of Galen, the difference. When you look at this episode in isolation, and you look at the differences in the interactions between Athena and Hilo and Galen and Boomer, it really makes you question where Galen's loyalties lie as an individual. I mean, you look at this and it's obvious. I think anybody that watches this episode, it's very obvious that she is the infiltrator. She is the saboteur. Galen should know this. He just should, from all the evidence that's presented to him, and yet he continues to protect her. So that really brings into question his loyalties, in my opinion, just from this episode alone.
Yeah.
I think
Galen,
it's also a bit of cover your ass at that point because they haven't been called out on their relationship yet. And technically, he's sleeping with a superior.
Well, right.
Officer.
They have a history of
not
secrecy.
supposed to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
So, he's really covering his ass.
But I thought Steven brought up a fascinating point too, because you can clearly start to see that Galen is willing to break his colonial oath to do whatever it takes for Boomer because he just loves Boomer.
Yeah.
And the difference is Hilo will cross nearly every line for Sharon except breaking his oath.
Right.
And and you find and you get to find that out later. But
one is military, the other is engineering. They're completely they're under the same umbrella, but they're very different departments.
But I mean, Galen has a very important job. He is the head mechanic.
One's an officer, one's an NCO, and that's what really makes a big difference.
Yeah,
he's an NCO. He's an NCO, but he's head of the repair team and everything like that. He's within the hierarchy of this structure. And Canada with the Navy, usually the departments are very separate. Like you can be an NCO and have like an NCO rank that separates you from the people that you're servicing on, like especially you have like the planes on the carriers. The head mechanic or the engineer of those things does say sir to people of lower rank than them, but he does still have technically a higher rank as an NCO for his position. And fraternization is definitely not encouraged in that area. It's okay in some regards, but I don't know what it's entirely like in the United States Navy.
In the U.S., that's a no go.
That's
you're not even allowed to talk to somebody unless it's like something that's directly involved with your job. You don't talk to them. But it's also to avoid a pain in the ass of what might happen if you talk to them. Because I mean, NCOs are big about "Don't call me sir, I work for a living." That's the line they're dropping on everybody. But with someone like that, I guess, I think Hilo's a lieutenant or something. I can't remember.
Yeah, Hilo's an LT at that point.
But
so he's just an LT.
Yeah, like pilots could sleep together. Well, as long as they're not a rank above them, like it has to be an exact lateral on rank in order.
That's to avoid the concept of superior influence or influence through superiority of chain of command.
Which is kind of exactly what's going on here with Boomer and Chief.
Because he's an NCO, but like you can also think of it this way: if Boomer were to lose her command and then transfer over to his department, she would not retain her rank, even though she has the experience and stuff. She would still be considered under him in that regard, like because of the knowledge status and the experience status. And what we have like in Canada, and it's not I mean, it's not across the board. Like our Navy and our Air Force and our military have very different rules about interrelationships there. But the one thing that is kind of consistent is that you all have to work together. There is a chain of command. You do work as a team, but it also requires, like, if you're on, say, a boat, you got to get along with everybody. So they encourage social activity so long as it doesn't cross any lines that would compromise decision making in a difficult event. When you're dealing with something where you only have 50,000 people, of course, your fleet, that's the challenge that the Galactica eventually has to face when the presidents are saying, like, yeah, we got to start repopulating, and some of these rules that we have, although they keep us human, they have to be bent for the time being because of the dire situation we're facing right now. And I think until, like, and the show kind of addresses that a little bit more later, but I mean, when you just look at it with, like, from one department to the other, it is kind of fair play. You know, one head of a department versus, you know, it'd be like the chief sleeping with a dama. Like, those two would be kind of the heads of their own department, so to speak, but they're not. But, like, you know, that's the hierarchy of where they are. So
that would be called Gay Llama if they shipped that, right?
That would be, definitely. That'd be Gay Llama.
Gay llama.
If that was shipped, it'd be totally Gay Llama.
Gay Llama. Okay, let me make sure.
But you can see that there's still an ethical workaround when it comes to the concept of rank between those things. Like, the NCO aspect and the naval military totally pushes that aside because they want to keep things very, very clean and neat. They don't want to compartmentalize too much. They want to make sure that there's a very definitive chain of command and how things are structured and done. And I really liked how the amount of detail that the Galactica show puts into trying to maintain that, even though most of the crew under Chief knows what he's doing with Sharon. Like,
oh yeah, that comes out big when she finally tells him about the blasting caps she found in her bag, and he's like, at the end he gives her the little snark salute and sends her on her way. It's like, oh, thank you, Captain. I'll look into that. And I thought that was perfect because that's pretty much the way it is.
So
I mean, Lord knows people wander in the actual military and it happens, but God save if anyone finds out.
So in isolation for these first two episodes, like what do you guys think of the story building so far?
I mean, I think it's great, you know, because in my opinion, they're doing a good job, and this is what they wind up doing for most of the series, and they maintain, you know, on that level to where there's always some sort of progression going on. And I think that's a good way to go about it. Like, even when they tried to have an episode that was sort of a one-off, it still had some tie-ins so that the story advanced. And that was really, really good to me. Because I like, personally, when I watch something, I like a lot of continuity. Like, for example, like me, Brian and Script Doctor, as we were talking about, you know, last season when we were doing Galactic Chat before we changed the name of the show, you know, we were doing the episodic reviews of Treadstone, and Treadstone did a good job with that same thing. You know, even when they had an episode that wasn't necessarily super character driven on some things, there was still a number of storylines that were progressing through that still kept the steam going. And that's what I think Galactica did so well. And that was one of the first shows really to do that, because I think, you know, there were a lot of shows at the time that were suffering from one-off syndrome that would sometimes do too many one-offs in a row and then lose their storyline. And Galactica did not lose its way in that regard.
Well, Galactica was one of the few shows that was actually an ongoing story that wasn't a soap opera. Yeah. I mean, the one prior to that was like Deep Space Nine and Battlestar and Babylon 5.
Yeah,
especially in the sci-fi genre. Like, television for almost the entirety of the 20th century was entirely episodic because there was no means to record the shows. There was no means to watch them back later. Syndication and had stipulations before a TV show could achieve it. So Like not a lot of people would be able to see an old episode for years at a time after it aired. So the whole idea was that you grow an audience by making sure that treat every episode like it's going to be the audience's first. And just like what Stan Lee did with comic books, like every comic book is somebody's first. That's what they did. But with the dawn of the internet and the ability to save and record television, Battlestar Galactica had the distinct advantage of, once they completed the miniseries and were told, hey, if you can tell more of this story, do it. They're like, okay, but we're going to keep the same type of miniseries format by like continuing the story one episode at a time.
Right.
And they didn't just do this on a plot area. They did it with characters, because notice at the start of this episode, every character has a conflict. Sharon doesn't know what the heck happens. Why is she soaking wet? Leah Dama is regretful of destroying the ship.
The carrier. Yeah.
His father is trying to maintain a semblance of normalcy between what he does on the ship, the responsibilities to the fleet, and to the responsibilities of the presidential office. And then the president is trying to figure out what the heck she's supposed to be doing on the etiquette side of things when it comes to relationships with the military and making sure and securing the survival of the human race. So you have all these conflicts that are completely independent of the plot of we need water. And that's what makes the show really, really good. And that's where you get your good writing from. It's a simple plot of this episode, just like last week's episode. It's, we're out of water. We need this to survive. And then you've got all the character issues that they're going through that are just circulating around this plot, but they're not integral to that plot. Like Sharon's mystery of what she did and what's happened, that is more related to the actual plot, because she's the reason for them in this situation. And then the issues that the chief faces, like, his booty call is responsible for this, and he has to cover for her because either he either saves her and continues to having fun with her in the stockroom, or he turns her over, she's gone, and then he's probably branded a traitor and loses his position. Yeah. So there's that great conflict as well. And
really quick,
that's what happens.
They have a direction they're going, and they obviously put their plots and their characters and the emotions on a map, and they were building their story that way. And every episode, when you watch it, it gives you a little facet to the character in each episode. It may not be every character in every episode, but gradually they build on these characters. And in good storytelling, it grabs you. It gets your interest, and you want to see what that person is going to do next. It's showing you that they're flawed human beings, and it's showing you what they're going to do with it.
Yeah, if only we had these quality arcs in Disney Star Wars, we wouldn't be where we are.
Yeah, like this episode was not a filler, although it's incredibly easily potential for, because there's consequences, because they're setting up, what if we don't find water? We're still rationing, and we have to jump to another system and start again. But luckily they found the water, which is good. But I like how they made it appear like it was not going to happen because of Boomer's programming from the Cylons. Comparatively to Disney's The Mandalorian, you've got 3 or 4 episodes there where if the Mandalorian fails, he's still in the same position he was at the start of that episode, so nothing changes. So no consequences, no real drama, just beautiful imagery, props, and a couple of fight scenes. So, I mean...
They're also
none of these episodes are really interchangeable either. Like there's definitely a progression as you're watching it. Like with Mando 3 and 4, like you could swap 3 and 4 in Mando, and you wouldn't have never known the difference. Like, it felt like 3 was pushed out to get 4
and 5. 3 was the one with where they escaped Navarro.
Yeah, 4 and 5. I apologize. 4 and 5.
Also,
go ahead.
I'm sorry. When you start off with 33, if you haven't watched the miniseries and you just start off with season 1, episode 1, there's that tension that's built up. That worry, constant all the time. You're worried. You have to be on your toes. These people have stayed up, for days and days and days. They're under constant threat. And then you move into this episode, and you think this is going to be the episode where everybody gets to take a breath, but it's not. And they continue to build upon the urgencies of the fleet, the needs. They go through explaining before the tanks blow that they have to, like a third of the fleet needs to recycle through Galactica because they can't do it on their own. They can't recycle the water on their own. And then they go into the tanks blowing and then trying to find water, like a grain of salt on the beach, and how difficult it is in space to find these things. And as the show progresses and they face more and more challenges, not only does it really compound the problem of being a fleet consistent in space, living off of the natural surroundings, the things in space that you need to get your resources from, but also it explains how these things are done, but their level of technology, how they do them, which really adds to the air and atmosphere during future threats, because they've already established this is the limit of their technology, or this is how their technology works. So when you get to those later episodes, you don't have to rehash anything, you don't have to explain it, because the drama and the direction and the focus of the show throughout each episode is so well drawn, so well created, that you're very immersed. Like Bear said, you want to know where these characters are going just in the character development alone, but as far as in being an interest in space travel and the technology of the fleet and what they have to do in order to maintain, it really hooks you. What's next, what's going to happen, when they're going to run out of food, they're going to run out of fuel. This episode proposes a lot of different questions just by threatening their water source and their water supply. And so I was always impressed by the storytelling of the screenwriters, and it's just one of the best shows, in my opinion, that I've ever seen.
Yeah, it emotionally sucks you in. It gets you emotionally involved.
It absolutely does.
That's what we want in TV shows and movies.
Well, I mean, there's things that wax and wane, like Script Doctor said earlier, about the water leaking out into space. I mean, there's certain things that you could nitpick if you want, but overall, the way that they present the material, the way they present the universe, there's really no need to nitpick. You can let certain things go, because overall, the presentation of the threats that they are under and the conditions that they are dealing with are well done enough that you don't have to spend your time picking something apart. Like if you were looking at Disney Star Wars, where everything is just so bad, it exasperates every other thing that you could possibly pick apart.
On top of that, like, it's the loss of water is not really their main issue. The fact that there's a Cylon among them, and they don't know who it is, that's what's really going to cause a bigger thing, because like what the president says, who knows for sure? There's also rumor, and if they do know that that's a possibility, that Cylons could look like humans, people are going to start accusing those that they don't like or trust, and that's going to cause a civil war, and basically like a Red Scare, and that's what they want to avoid. So you've got that as a ticking time bomb, because that is eventually going to be revealed to the survivors. And then when you have that lack of trust among the people who are dependent on each other in order to for the survival of their species, that is going to be a big issue to address. And I love the fact that they were able to really establish that in this episode. It's like, yeah, we're out of water, and it's a search, and it could happen. We could find it, but it's a lot easier for us to find water than it is to figure out how to find out who's a Cylon and who's human.
And also dealing with keeping those things under wraps, because as Ty said, that there were already murmurs amongst the crew about that being a possibility.
And then riots for rationing water. And imagine if you're rationing water and you realize, well, he could be a Cylon, he doesn't need water, and then all the avenues of where that could go is a lot of fun to play with. And the fact that the series itself doesn't really give our characters a respite, nothing huge. The moment they get a break, it's very, very short, because another problem presents itself. And I love that they put that stress on there, because I use that as examples whenever I'm pitching a show or working in a room. It's they're like, yeah, let's write an episode where they're just kind of like a bottle show where they're just kind of like relaxing. I'm like, well, people are going to be bored with that. And they're like, well, the characters need a point to relax. That's what the time between the episodes is for.
That's what a holiday episode is for.
Yeah, and really, you don't want to waste time on that. So If you want to say, okay, this episode compared to the last one takes place 2 weeks later, then they can say in that 2 weeks that's where they got to recharge, and then you get back into the nitty gritty with the story, because as Alfred Hitchcock said, movies are life without the boring parts, and that's kind of what you want to do.
Yeah, normally when you have that 2 weeks or 3 weeks later, they always have a flashback scene that gives you a hint of what happened.
If not a flashback, there'll definitely be some sort of conflict that it references to something that hasn't been told.
I loved our time on the beach during our vacation kind of thing.
Essentially, something like that. And I thought something really cool. It's like you said, guys. I like the additional layer of the PR issue about not letting that fact come out about Cylons looking like humans because of the public scare. Because I mean, my God, people would shit a brick if they found out that there was, a Cylon agent running around aboard Galactica.
and think about it this way: space sickness is a real freaking thing.
Yeah.
They have space sickness, and people that are in tin cans out in space, all of a sudden thinking that, oh shit, is the human next to me going to kill me because they're a Cylon?
Yeah,
that's enough to drive you freaking crazy, and it's a good story point to make in a story.
Yeah, exactly, man.
When I was younger, like I didn't like the tension in a TV show, and now, like, as I'm getting older and the more and more I actually start like dissecting things, I'm like, I got to have me some tension. There's another show I was rewatching too,
there's some tension on that bathing suit.
The amount of tension. Oh God.
My future ex-wife.
Hey, I would like to point out that the chat is having a completely different conversation.
With regards to Dracula?
Dracula, yeah. Tommy says was just weird in its presentation and divergence from the original story. I kind of thought it was kind of strange in some ways.
You know what, Tommy? Let me explain something. You give me a well-written script, right? You give me a well-written script, good characters, a great story, and you add this, my friend. All right, you add that, and I am a happy man. That has my attention entirely.
Yeah, exactly.
That's one of the main things I gave the show credit for, is as attractive as all the women in the show are, they're still rocking some like greens through the whole thing, and they're still very attractive.
Yeah,
I like that they weren't, I think once during episode 2 during the poker scene, you kind of get a little cleavage from Starbuck, but other than that, like, they weren't really using their feminine wild.
The show was as sexy as it could be.
Yeah, they weren't overly sexualized.
Well, it was as sexy as it could be. Yeah, number 6 definitely. But I mean, no, the show was as sexy as it could be. Well, and honestly, if it was on HBO or Stars, we'd have gotten.
Oh Lord.
There would have been tits and ass shown. Yeah,
that would have been.
But see, I think what they were going for was the subtle overtones, but with very obvious subtle overtones, and they made them very good. And I think that's what really got people, and it left people wanting more.
Well, this is an episode that does a mystery box technique correctly, because they actually have content inside that box, and they tease you with clues as to what the story happened. So by the end of the episode, you know exactly what happened. That Boomer went into the water tanks. She probably didn't have to breathe in there because she's a robot. Placed the explosives, and then her base programming shut down to allow her to sort of clean up and go hide, and it works out well. And you can watch that episode again and completely follow exactly what's going on for the situation, and see the potential of what this sleeper agent is going to end up doing to the rest of the crew and the fleet.
Doesn't she wake up in her flight suit?
She wakes up in a flight suit soaking wet.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah.
Dripping.
Or dripping.
Like her hair.
Just
hair
looking at her hands, confused.
So
Yeah.
technically, she could have just donned the flight suit because like they're kind of metal machines or meat machines.
Now
I
there
remember.
was a thing, guys, that I don't know if you caught at the beginning, because it looked like at the start like she had blood on her hands too.
Oh, with the way the lighting was, yeah. Well, the cinematography for this episode was not its best. They were way too close in on the actors in this episode.
Well, I thought that she had blood on her hands. So, like in the opening shot, when she was sitting in the tool room, and she was sitting like on top of the duffel, whatever, and she's just kind of like soaking wet and everything. Then they kind of you got a zoom in on her hand, on both her hands, and it looked like she had blood on her hands. Now they didn't address that, but I did.
I'm going to the DVD on this one.
I had
I'm gonna check that.
I had wondered if she killed a guard or something like that.
Why they didn't have guards over the armory.
Yeah.
Hey, Drew.
And the water that's dripping from her.
Drew, I thought I
ear.
saw the same thing.
Yeah. So see, you understand what I was talking about, Bear, because you watched a couple times in a row, so you probably caught that little detail at the beginning. I caught that too.
Well, actually, I'm looking at a still of it right now, and her hands aren't bloody, but they are red as if they were cold.
Oh yeah, that might
Because when your hands get really cold, they can go red before they go blue. Because
I could have swore. Yeah, I mean, I could have just swore, and it might just have been like you said, SD. It might have been the lighting, but man, it looked really like she had blood on her hand, like she had actually surprised.
But technically,
somebody.
she kind of almost did because she was trying to kill the fleet.
They are definitely bruised.
Hey, you know the scenes.
I can't confirm that.
You know the scenes where their spines were glowing and lighting up.
Yeah.
When they were having the nookie.
Yep. That's like I was being subtle so someone else would say it. So basically, that's a dead giveaway.
Yeah, and on top of that, like I see how they did the lighting effect. I'm paused at like the minute 47 mark, and she's looking at her hands, and they're directly under the spotlight above her head, and so they're reflecting off like the pinkish glow that you would have when you put light close to your hands. So
like at minute 18, they look very bruised.
Yeah.
They
look like like she had to pry open a door or something, or at least again that water in there could be.
Wow,
freezing.
yeah, they are very red.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll give you that. But yeah, I mean, she had to place those. She had to place the detonators.
Yeah. All right, guys. So we got 10 minutes left in the show. So what I want to do really quick is we'll go around the horn again. And I want to get everybody's favorite part of the episode. So we're just going to go around the horn, and everybody's going to give their favorite moment, favorite part of the episode. So, Steven, go ahead, lead us off.
My favorite part of the episode. That's a pretty tough one. Actually, I liked the interaction between Baltar and Starbuck in the room, and when they were playing poker. I liked because I know where these characters are headed. You don't get to see too much of those two later on, so like there's like a quick interaction between these two characters. I mean, and a little bit in future episodes. But I also know where Galen's headed with Baltar, so I like seeing the genesis of that relationship, of that companionship.
Gata.
Or Gata, yeah. And so yeah, that's my favorite little snippet, because those are some of my favorite characters in the show. And so that's that.
Okay, Brian.
For me, it's definitely going to be the dialogue with Adama and Roslin, where he has his quote that I brought up earlier about keeping the military and the police separate, just because that whole scene between those two really sets up what comes to be later on in the show with their relationship and how they have their back and forth and their love for each other.
Okay. Bear?
Well, there's a lot of parts in this I liked. I liked the scene where she finds herself soaking wet, looking confused. That was pretty cool. I like the the parts where Baltar is talking to his imaginary friend. That's an angel, pretty much.
Okay. So he's talking to the.
Those are always interesting. Those
Yeah.
are pretty fascinating. And let's see what else. Probably the interactions between Chief and Boomer.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. SD.
Well, very much like Brian, the conversation between Adama and the president in his office, where he gives her the book and states what his intentions as a military leader are. I love that scene, and I also really like the tension scene with Boomer when she's on the Raptor and she's trying to tell her Sam Witwer that she found water and she can't do it. She's like, "Run us another scan," and part of me was thinking like, "Oh, why don't I run scan 2 and you run scan 1 instead?" Like they'll flip it, but her mind doesn't go that way. It's just like routine. It's almost like a fight with the programming, and the fact that she overcame it and then became the hero of the day. Love that part. Like she became her own hero and villain at the same time in that episode.
Nice. Yeah, that was a nice minor redemption arc. That was cool. All right.
I think I figured something out, guys.
Okay.
With Boomer's hands early on in the episode,
Her hands look sore. I just rewatched it.
Okay. One of the things I think we've forgotten about is the scene later on where Chief and Callie are having their conversation about the piece that looks like it's been blown up, and one of Chief's biggest things is, well, there's so much rust in here. Because if you go to a minute 55 of this episode, you see Boomer trying to wipe it off.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
On her hips. Yeah.
So it could very well be the rust from the water
I just
tank.
rewatched that scene because her hands look kind of red.
Yeah.
And she did wipe her hands off.
Yeah.
And when she was looking looked in her bag, her hands looked pretty freaking red and irritated, like reddish.
Yep.
Yeah.
So they could have been rusty.
Cold temperature of the water, touching the rust, and there you go.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. That's where that might have came from, guys. Good catch. God, man, everybody's on point tonight.
In this show that's awesome, man. I love this show.
Yeah, everybody's on point tonight. I love it. All right, my favorite, really quickly, I think my favorite moment in the episode, to me, I like the father-son dynamic between Adama and Lee when Lee's having some issues dealing with the Olympic carrier incident. He has a dialogue exchange with Adama, and Adama tells him the lesson early on. Part of being a man is accepting the responsibilities of your actions, and you live with the consequences every day. And Lee takes that to heart, so much so that at the end, it comes up again, and he shows that he's taken it to heart by sort of sharing that moment with the president. So I like that little sort of full circle thing with Lee and the interaction with his father.
Definitely.
So that was my personal favorite. But, there was from top to bottom, a lot of good stuff in this episode. And seeing as how we are winding down the panel, guys, I'm going to let these guys plug their channels here in a second. But
Hey,
yeah, Bear.
I just had a thought.
Okay.
Okay. Remember in when the nukes went off on Caprica?
Yes.
And you had Caprica 6?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Totally sacrificed herself and shielded Baltar.
Yes.
Now, okay, the Cylons are supposed to be able to have their consciousness upload, right?
Uh-huh.
To these ships so they can be, what do they call it?
Technically
it's called Resurrection Ship.
Goes to Resurrection Ship. Yeah.
Well, and Cylons believe in one God.
Uh-huh.
So now all of a sudden Baltar has this Caprica 6 personality that obviously loves him. It's obvious.
Mm-hmm.
And what I think is in this storyline, she was, because of her sacrificing herself for him, God made her an angel.
I mean, but you see her again You see Capricorn.
Yeah, you
Like her
see.
consciousness was copied and made into.
Yeah,
an
Physical.
she has
Right,
Right.
okay.
Her consciousness
Yeah,
is copied
Baltar in
into
her head.
an angel by God
Yeah,
in the storyline.
yeah.
And
Observation. Yeah.
so that's why she constantly is talking with Baltar and does get mad at him
Mhm.
a little bit here and there. But she loves him.
Oh yeah.
And she sacrificed herself out of love because she did love him. But she full well knew that he didn't love her the same way.
Yeah.
But yet she still did it because she did love him. And I think that's why she is there as an angel.
There's an awful lot of prophecy that's put into this show.
Yes.
I mean, it's very prophecy heavy, and creationist heavy. I mean,
Yeah, and we're going to get into that.
Yeah.
Eventually as we get into the later episodes, because there is some good stuff there. But I think you have a good theory with that, Bear. But yeah, like I said, we're going to go ahead and start going down the line and plugging everybody's channels. And I'm excited for next week because we're going to do episode 3, Bastille Day. And that's a pretty good one, pretty solid one there. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And of course, as always, you guys can catch me on boundingintocomics.com. I write there, and I've got new articles up nearly every day. And we have a staff of talented writers. We had Donald Edmonds in here, one of my colleagues earlier, that is also a writer there. Of course, the great John Trent, our fearless leader, the editor-in-chief of Bounding Into Comics, and all our wonderful staff there. So make sure that you support us. Check out Bounding Into Comics, and also you can find us here every Thursday on my channel with the Pegasus Actual Podcast. And I absolutely love it so far. These guys are doing an amazing job, and we love bringing the Battlestar talk to you guys out in the chat. So thank you so much, and I'm going to go ahead and pass it around. Let everybody plug their channel and what they're doing. So we will start out again with Stephen.
Hey, check out my channel, Author Stephen Walton, on YouTube. When I upload, I try to upload content that you guys can appreciate, maybe view more than once. I don't really, I can't upload like some of the other guys, 3 a day and so forth. I do a lot of writing. I'm also the author of the Fandom Menace Volume 1 of Fandom Betrayed. The ebook is now available on Amazon Kindle. Please check that out. Paperbacks will be available after the Indiegogo backers for the first edition have been fulfilled. You can also check me out on Twitter at Lodonis, Lodonis, and check out my show, The Fourth Wave, which rotates on Sporking News Podcast, Final Death Star, Bear Nerd Fun, and Immortal Coil on Wednesdays. And on Saturdays, you can see that show on my channel. Thank you very much for having me, guys. I'm really enjoying this podcast.
Yep, Brian.
Glad to have you, man. Brian the Gravedigger on YouTube. I'm actually getting ready to get my custom URL because I'm over 100 subs now.
Nice.
Congrats.
And you can find me on Twitter at DJ Brock Sheridan. Look me up on there. It's pretty much the only places I'm ever social. I'm about to do a walkabout, film a walkabout of the property, and show everybody what's actually out here. So if you don't live on a piece of land, I wouldn't suggest you watch it because you'll probably get mad at the amount of wasted land we have. So
I'm already jealous.
Yeah, I'm chilling. All right, go ahead, Bear.
Well, I remember when I hit my 100 mark, and I was able to pretty much make my name part of the channel name part of the address. And for some reason, YouTube still hasn't cycled out the old address for some reason, but I do have my own link, and that was cool, I gotta say. How far away are you, Ryan? How far away are you?
Oh, I'm back to 112 now. So
112.
I've been there for about a month and a half now. I just completely forgot I could do it.
You have to go into Google settings to do it.
Yeah.
And you'll be able to set it up. It was somewhat difficult to figure out, but I got it figured out and I set mine up.
Yeah, I know it'd be a lot easier just to type that in because this is pretty much my one nickname on everything right now.
Yeah.
So it'll make it a bit easier instead of trying to give these long URLs for people to find me.
Yeah, this
Yeah,
this
I look forward to playing around with it.
yeah, this it's really cool live stream with you guys. It's a cool little show we got going here.
It's a lot of fun bringing you two guys
Yeah.
in. Like you guys are very well versed on the Battlestar universe. So
Hey, I
it's nice to have people know what they're talking about.
I always shoot from the hip though. I've always been like that. I'm spontaneous.
Yeah, but Bear.
I gotta have my notes.
But to be fair, Bear
on stuff I've never watched, I do take notes.
Yeah,
But on stuff that I've seen over and over and over again, I've watched this probably 10 times. I ain't kidding, because it was free on Prime for a while.
Yeah,
and so what I'm gonna have to do is I'm gonna have to end up buying it on Blu-ray or something.
Yeah, but Bear did his homework for this, and I'm very thankful for him for doing that and just coming on the show and slaying it. So, Bear, plug your channel.
Yeah, you can find me at Bear Nerd Fun. It's part of the YouTube link now. Hey. And so you'll catch me on Wednesdays and Saturdays with author Stephen Walton, Final Death Star, Immortal Coil, Sparking Podcast. And we will be on the fourth wave, and you can catch us there 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time Wednesdays and 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on Saturdays. And, times fluctuate.
And there's always the fourth wave late edition.
And there is the fourth wave late edition that Drew is a part of.
So is the CJH. Big shout out to him in chat.
And I am on like probably maybe an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours of sleep.
Wow.
So
there will be no late edition tonight, probably.
Probably not, man. It probably will be a little bit off the hook and a little insane. It's like, no.
Yeah.
No. But hey, Mads Mama Bear, happy birthday, okay?
Yeah. Happy birthday to Mads Mama Bear. Hail to Mads Mama Bear.
Hail, Mads Mama Bear.
And also, go ahead and last but not least, we've got the awesome Script Doctor PhD. Go ahead, sir. The floor is yours.
Okay, so I am the Script Doctor. You can find me at youtube.com. I think it's /Script Doctor. I just got my URL thing just before the new year.
Nice.
I think it's the Script Doctor. Right now, it's just a whole bunch of letters when you go to my actual channel thing. But yeah, you can find me there. I am also on Twitter and at Script Doctor PhD. And I do this Pegasus Actual Podcast, which is awesome because I get to geek out on some classic science fiction shows and get a whole bunch of different perspectives from the great panelists here. You please go subscribe to all of them. They do way more content than I can right now. Things are a little busy on the Hollywood side of things now that the industry is kind of starting up for the new seasons. And if anyone does have that episode 9 script, please email it to me at thescriptdoctorphd@gmail.com because it's frustrating to hear of a hot script and not have it in my inventory. So yeah,
he wants the precious. He wants the precious.
I want the precious. Yes, I will go Gollum on this thing if I have to.
Yes. We'll make sure if anybody can find that, help a brother out and get Script Doctor that script because that'd be awesome.
Yeah, if there's a stipulation that I'm not to release it, I can definitely abide by that. That's not a problem. But I just want to read it to see what it is and also verify the metadata on it to make sure it is legit. Because right now we're getting sources based off other sources. So and the fact that the people that I know personally who are in the know are like, yeah, we've heard of the script, but we've never seen it. We don't even know if the title is real. That's what I'm getting right now. But I want to trust Robert Meyer Burnett because he is a very honest guy, and I'm really hoping it's the real deal. And looking forward to seeing how this all develops with Disney now that they're in the recovery stage.
Yeah, so we've only seen screenshots of that script.
Yeah.
Yeah, and no one's released a page count, which is weird because every writer, every person in Hollywood, the first thing they talk about is with the script is it's this many pages, it's 120 pages, whatever. I'm like,
Yeah, I thought that's
REM
like
doesn't
the
do that,
typical-
and I'm like, that's weird. And
Yeah.
so
I thought that was kind of like the typical dick swinging that goes on as well. Mine is 500 pages at this point. I'm only
yeah, well, if you say 500 pages, we're like, you're a terrible writer then.
Yeah,
You can't
exactly.
tell a story in 90
I'm
to
not
120
speculating,
pages.
and I am a terrible writer. So,
Well, we again thank you to everybody in the chat for coming out and hanging out with us for a couple hours tonight. You know, we do this every Thursday, 9 p.m. Eastern to 11 p.m. Eastern. So make sure that you come by and check it out. And hey, look, if you guys want to watch the episodes along with us and catch up, you know, right now you can go to either NBC.com or sci-fi.com, and all you have to do is just click on you know, I would say go to sci-fi.com because it's easier, you know, and that's SYFY because Sci-Fi changed their name years ago to that stupid way that they have it now.
You know
But
why
if
they
you-
changed it?
Yeah, because there was a dispute over the domain.
Well, you
Yeah.
can't copyright sci-fi
Yeah, exactly.
because they're letters, and
Yeah.
the reason why they changed the letters is so they can copyright this logo.
Right. So, but if you go to sci-fi.com, you can watch Galactica there for free, and they have everything, you guys. They have the miniseries, they have season 1, 2, 3, 4, they have Razor the Plan, and everything in between. So you can catch up and watch with us. So you can conceivably go and watch season 1 and first couple episodes, and you know, you guys in chat can come back next week and everybody will be all about, hey, Bastille Day, you know, so you guys can do that. So go to sci-fi.com and watch it, and then we will talk about it next week because we'll be here and we'll be ready to go like the guys were tonight. Everybody killed it tonight. I'm so proud of these guys. So
yeah,
until next,
definitely something I wanted to try and encourage was
Yeah.
to get people to watch it and join in.
exactly.
I think next week I'll include the URL from Siffy.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So next week, guys, if you want to catch up and you know, come in and chat fresh off your personal watching of Bastille Day, hey, come in and chit chat with us, and we'll all just jump right in. So looking forward to it, and we will see you guys next week. So take it easy and good night.
Hail,
Good night, everybody.
Hail the Phantom Menace.
hail, Phantom Menace.
So say we all.
So say we all.